Hello students, welcome to EPG Pathshala. My name is DK Bhattacharya and I'll be talking about tool types and techniques of Neolithic period. At the outset, I must clarify that the Neolithic period is defined on the basis of certain attributes of technology as also economy. But somehow these are not universally applicable. You have many sites where you do not find all the three attributes together. Anyway, going by the definition, the three attributes which are imperative for defining a culture as Neolithic are as follows. Number one, it has to have seed which can be done in a paleobotany lab. It can be defined as having been created by what is known as homogeneous planting and domestication. So the presence of a domesticated seed is imperative in defining the culture as Neolithic period. In the same way, the presence of pottery is also taken as imperative for defining Neolithic culture. And the third attribute, which is taken as imperative for defining Neolithic culture, is the presence of a celt. A celt is a Neolithic stone tool. Fourth and final is the evidence of permanent habitation for Neolithic period is also a very important attribute of defining it. It must be emphasized that 400,000 years ago, we have evidence of permanent structure being made in French Riviera at a site called Terra Amata. Similarly, we have the evidence of permanent structure having been made in Sarai Naharrai, and you know that it is dated to 9000 BC. So we do have one structure. And the permanent structure always is taken as daub, and mostly in India, at least daub and wattle and daub structure. Wattle and daub is you take dried branches of trees and bushes and make a net of it and then plaster mud from both the sides to create a wall. This kind of structure has been found in all early Neolithic and even early Chalcolithic sites in India. Having said as much as the definitional attribute, we must look at the word Stone Age axe, which is called a celt, C-E-L-T. A Stone Age axe is taken as determining evidence or definitional evidence of a Neolithic culture on the ground that a culture where you have first taken to clearing a virgin forest. A virgin forest needs to be cleared for making a kind of a farmland where sun can reach the ground. You see, in kind of a forested region, the canopy of the trees are such joined that the sun cannot reach the ground. So the first thing that you require in order to make a place or a farming land where sun can reach is to cut a tree. How can you cut a tree without having any metal implements? Now, this was something which is enigmatic. For a long time, we have been accepting no, farming was done along river beds where some monsoonic overflow had created some silt and a little strip of thing could be used to create one kind of a crop. But it's not true, because the moment you take into farming, your population increases in an exponential manner. 4 becomes 16 and 16 becomes 256. So you exponential increase of the population means that you have to constantly increase the withdrawal of the subsistence base from the land, and you constantly require a larger farmland. And if you require a larger farmland, you have no other alternative but to cut the tree. How do you cut a live tree without having any metal implement? It is argued that they created a kind of stone tool which is called a stone axe by a very systematic method. They picked up a stone and then created a kind of a hand axe of the lower Paleolithic kind by taking flakes out, and the flakes have been taken out good enough. Then what you do is that you use a pecking technique by taking a cylinder hammer and break the ridges between the two scars. If the two scars are meeting at a point, there will be a ridge, and you break the ridges. So it is called pecking. So flaking and then is pecking. And after pecking has been done, it looks something like this. it has become smooth and you can't see the intersection of the scars. Then you put sand and water on granite slabs and rub it. And this rubbing has been called as grinding and polishing. Some people believe that polishing is a separate technique. No. Grinding and polishing is a term used in conjugation to mean that grinding to done in order to create a polished surface. You can see the polished surface. So you have a large amount of sites, in many sites, where you have found big stones, granites, in which grooves, parallel grooves are there. And you know, in these groups, these groups have been created by constantly rubbing these tools in order to create a sharp border. Now, this sharp border that has been created is so sturdy, almost comparable. It is so sturdy that it's almost comparable to a metal axe. Now, this is called a Neolithic celt. I repeat again, a Neolithic celt is prepared by first flaking and then pecking and then grinding and polishing. It is incidentally important for us to know that this implement is taken so cardinal to human civilizational growth. I repeat, so cardinal to human civilizational growth that in the papal headquarters in Vatican, the emblem has a kind of a man holding a celt. A celt has been taken symbolically as the first step towards the development of civilization, because you become sedentary, you create agriculture, you have a surplus and you have a culture, so the beginning of a village occurs. And it goes on and on. Many authorities believe that these were primitive plough. This is wrong. Plough agriculture occurs at least 2000 years after first agriculture begins. You have celt coming from 6000 BC, 5000 BC, and plough agriculture is not available till about 2500 BC. So plough agriculture is that stage where you have a kind of a political imperative to cross the limit of production beyond culturally determined limit. So you have a culturally determined limit. I am 50 people, or we have 50 people, we require so much of food, so we will prepare so much. But the political power comes and says, no, you prepare more than 50 people's requirement. You prepare 500 people's requirement. So a kind of a power structure develops, and the power structure usurps the rest of the food, and leaving the amount that has been used by the 500 people in the group, the rest of the amount is used for power. So plough agriculture comes much later. So some people originally felt that these were the primitive ploughs. I don't think that is really true. These were the axes with which big trees were cut. And after big trees were cut, the sun could reach the ground. Of course, there are bushes around, and they could be set fire. So bushes can be cleared by setting them on fire. So a kind of a farmland can be created. Not only this, you find very interesting evidence of this kind of rubbing stones. And you know at once that the harvested seed, let us say barley or wheat, used to be rubbed in order to make flour. And we have found rubbing stones, which is called saddle and quern, or just grinder. We find many of these grinding stones in Neolithic settlement. So you start seeing that the tools that are prepared here in Neolithic period are for secondary processing of food. Please remember, preceding to this culture, all the tools were for primary retrieval of resource. And here, besides primary retrieval of resource, you have secondary processing of them. Processing of the material that has come from the harvest needs to be ground, polished, and so on and so forth. Another thing that keeps coming from many Neolithic sites is a very interesting rounded, specially rounded flat stone in which a hole has been made. Mind you, it is stone and there is no metal discovered. It is pre-metal. So how a stone has been given a hole in it, it is believed quartz or some rough stone has been used and rubbed around to make this hole. Now imagine so much of labor put in for making a piece like this. Nobody knows what its function could be. But it was argued that they could be used for thrashing the tools, thrashing the harvest. So you put a stone, a wooden stock in it, and then you beat the harvest so that the chaff is separated from the grains. And today in many parts of Haryana, they make bulls or buffaloes to walk on the harvested material so that the chaff can be separated from the grains. So they are called harvester or maize head, maize, M-A-C-E, maize head. But the interesting point is that these ring stones, they're called ring stones, and these ring stones are not of the uniform shape. You go to the eastern India, many of the ring stones become as small as this. Now, small ring stones could have been used for harvesting material or harvesting the material. It was used possibly as sinking stones in a net. So if you are using net for fishing, you require stones to make the net sink down. So you require small stones to make it sink down, and it is argued that those small ring stones are used as sinkers in nets. It's true that in the eastern sides you don't have material which needs to be harvested in this manner. You have rice. Rice can be harvested in a different manner. We do not know. So a Neolithic silt is an axe which is made by the three stages of flaking and then pecking and then grinding and polishing. Along with that, you start getting the ring stones.